Do you have a strong metabolism? How do you know? What is a way that we can see if our metabolism is supporting us, supporting our goals, whatever that may be? I'm Susan Lopez, tactical dietitian, and this is the Tactical Nutrition and Performance Podcast, where we help tactical athletes bridge the gap between nutrition, metabolism, sleep, stress, and training so that they can perform better and live longer. Welcome to the show. All right, guys, welcome back. So today, as you might have guessed, we're going to be talking about metabolism. How can you tell if you have a strong metabolism? Lots of people think that their metabolism slows as they age. But we've had some research come out recently to tell us that no, that's not really the case. Often what changes is not our basal metabolic rate, but what actually changes is more likely our lifestyle and our ratio of lean muscle mass to body fat. We have increased stress as we age. We might be getting poorer quality of sleep as we age. And so there's a lot of things happening there that isn't necessarily related to basal metabolic rate. Now remember that basal metabolic rate is that minimum amount of energy that you need just to keep your body functioning, your heart beating, your lungs working, brain working, etc., without taking into consideration that daily physical activity. As we get older, what typically tends to wane is our daily activity level. But what can we do to really improve our metabolic output, our metabolic rates, our metabolic response, whatever you want to call it? Is there a way to assess that without necessarily getting into like expensive testing? So let's get into that today. So what is metabolism? Metabolism is all of the processes in your body that happen to keep you alive. A lot of times when we're talking about metabolism, what we're really talking about is energy metabolism, the process of taking in energy from the foods that we eat and drink, processing them through the GI tract, right? So there's digestion, absorption, and then eventually elimination. What happens with that energy that we take in is that energy is used to fuel all those processes that keep us alive. When your heart beats, when your brain thinks a thought, when you contract a muscle, all of this requires energy that can only come from your food and the foods that you eat. When I'm working with my athletes, one of the things that we do in the first phase of their program is we want to assess how receptive their metabolism is going to be to changes that we make to their daily routine to hopefully get the outcome that we want. Remember, when we're changing our nutrition, when we're changing our training, when we are adding supplementation, all of this can act as a stimulus to your body's internal environment, to the metabolism, to hopefully propel some changes to occur positively or negatively. And so we want to create a strong metabolism so that it's more predictable, so that when we apply stimulus, we can expect that the changes we want to see will happen. What I'd like for you guys to do before we get too deep in the talk today is head over to tacticaldietitian.com/guide, where you can actually download our Tactical Athlete Guide for better sleep, improved energy. And all of the information I'm talking about today is in that guide, along with the different biomarker tests that I recommend, along with how to manage your nutrition during a rehabilitation or injury process, and also how to build your first periodized nutrition plan. So head over there, download the guide, listen to what I'm saying today, and use that guide to help you really build a solid plan, where a lot of coaches can only talk to you about macros and calories, and that's it. We like to look at the whole picture because we understand that your body system is not just meal plans, but we have to take the whole person into account. So make sure you download the guide, take a look at it, and then let me know if you have questions in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform. You can head over to my Instagram at tactical.dietitian and drop me a message in my DMs. So if we're in a situation where maybe we have unintentionally mismanaged our metabolism, there are some negative things that can happen. One, our metabolic efficiency is decreased. Well, what does this mean? So when we talk about metabolic efficiency, this can cover a few different things. Usually in the realm of performance, if I'm talking about metabolic efficiency, I'm talking about the efficiency at which your body can switch from one fuel source to another, carbohydrates versus fat. But this can also be discussing how effectively your body burns calories. We want it to burn calories throughout the day, because if our body is burning a sufficient amount of calories throughout the day, it's going to make it easier for us to maintain a healthy weight, body fat percentage, and you're more likely, as long as you have energy coming in, to be able to have steady energy levels throughout the day. If we're neglecting our metabolism, and there's some issues there again with nutritional intake and supplementation, you could see decreased hormone productions, and that could be thyroid hormones and or sex hormones. If you're someone who experiences nagging pains, aching joints, you are susceptible to a decent amount of injuries. This could also be another indication that there are issues with your metabolism potentially related to your energy balance. All right, so let's take the next few minutes, and as I'm going through these, I want you to ask yourself these questions regarding whether or not your metabolism is in a healthy state, or at least an effective state. I like to use the acronym DATES to remind me what are the things on a daily basis that I should be self-assessing. We're not talking about those kind of dates. We're not talking about the ones that you eat either. This acronym stands for digestion, appetite, training, energy, and sex. So let's go through these. As we're going through these, I want you to think to yourself, am I doing really great in these areas? Am I doing meh, so-so? Or am I really doing very poorly in these areas? As we're going through this checklist, if you're making yourself a mental list, this will give you a good indication on where you can start to making changes with your habits and with your nutrition. So let's start with digestion. When we're talking about digestion, we're talking about the health of your digestive tract and some of the subjective symptoms that you might be experiencing. It could include diarrhea, constipation. We want to look at how well food moves through your system from top to bottom. People always get a little bit weird when I start talking about their poops. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, talking about poop is a normal dietitian conversation. Even when I'm hanging out with my dietitian friends, there occasionally enters chit-chat about poop into the conversation. Okay, so don't be weird about it. It's normal. We want to look at how frequently you're having a bowel movement. Bowel movement simply means how frequently are you pooping. Normally, we want to see a bowel movement occur once a day. Bonus points if you're doing it at the same time every day. What does the consistency of your poops look like? If we look at the Bristol stool chart, you'll see that there's different levels, stemming all the way from runny on one end to very hard and difficult to pass on the other. Most of the time, we want to be somewhere in the center where we have like this long, smooth, sausage-like log coming out with very few cracks on the surface. If you're on one end of the spectrum or the other frequently, then this can be an indication that things are not moving through your digestive system the way that they're supposed to. Are you experiencing bloating? What I come across frequently is individuals who don't eat regular meals throughout the day frequently, who don't eat enough calories throughout the day, sometimes tend to experience the sensation of food sitting in the gut, and they feel like it's not going anywhere. And this might also include some bloating to go along with that. Now, there are some other situations that can cause these symptoms, but you should be aware of these. If you're experiencing these on a pretty regular basis, there's definitely something there that's worth it. Another thing to be aware of is, are we experiencing heartburn, indigestion? Do we have a history of acid reflux? This can be an indication that there might be something going on with the digestive tract also. So when we talk about bloating, sometimes bloating can be caused by either low or high acid production. Very frequently, we treat for high acid production when in reality, the potential cause might be low acid production. So this is why it's so important to work with someone who can help you determine what's actually happening with your bowels. So the next thing we're going to talk about is A, for appetite. How is your appetite on a daily basis? Are you waking up feeling relatively hungry? Are you getting hungry approximately every 4 hours or so throughout the day? Do you feel like you're able to satisfy your appetite, or do you feel like you're just constantly eating without feeling satisfied? All right, so let's talk about T, training. When you're in a training session, do you feel like you have the energy to give your very best to that training session? Do you feel like you can focus? Do you experience excessive muscle soreness that lasts longer than 2 to 3 days? Do you feel like you can't recover properly? Are you actually making progression in your strength, in your endurance, in your total performance, assuming, of course, that you are on a properly progressive training program? When you feel like you have consistent energy throughout your workouts, when you feel like your recovery is strong, when you feel like your muscle soreness and your recovery is manageable and you're seeing improvements in your physical performance, this is one way to know that you're making positive adaptations in your training and that your metabolism is supporting that. Let's talk E, for energy levels. How do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Do you feel like you have adequate energy to get through your day? Do you wake up feeling relatively energized? Is there consistent energy throughout your daily activities, whether it be training or just doing your day-to-day job? If you're not waking up feeling fairly refreshed, somewhat alert, and you don't feel like you have consistent energy throughout the day, this could be problematic and a sign that potentially there's something going on metabolically. Let's talk about S, for sex. Yes, sex is important. Your libido is important. Your desire to have sex is important. Your sexual function and health is important. And objectively, of course, we can look at your sex hormone levels, but subjectively, we also want to know, do you have desire? Do you have the desire to have sex? Do you feel like you can express that desire? When we look at the body's primal urges, there are two things that are a priority to your body: survival and procreation. And when we get into a situation where perhaps we don't have enough energy coming in or our energy balance is off, there could be a situation where we have to sacrifice that sexual drive in order to ensure that survival is prioritized. Sex hormones are often the first thing in both men and women that can suffer when we are experiencing something known as low energy availability. And this is essentially where there is not enough energy left over for biological function, especially optimized biological function, after we have utilized what energy we do have towards physical activity, towards exercise, towards that immediate need. So how did you do? Did you score great in every category? Did you score poor? Were there some that were like meh, somewhere in between? So how do we use the system to make sure that we're improving our metabolism? While it took me a good 15 minutes to kind of explain the simple system, it takes even less time than that to do a daily check-in with yourself. You wake up in the morning, quick systems check. How am I feeling? Are you hungry? Do you feel energized? We go into our training session. How are we feeling during our training session? Are we noticeably hungry throughout the day? What's happening in the afternoon when a lot of people's energy levels start to wane? When we get home in the evening, are we being intimate with our partner? These check-ins only take a few seconds throughout the day, but they're a good way to subjectively assess your overall metabolic health. And of course, I do recommend also making sure you get some objective testing done. So that could look like lab testing. Remember, you can get a list for what lab tests I recommend in our athlete guide. Just go to tacticaldietitian.com/guide. You can also look at wearables, Garmin, Aura, Whoop. All of these are great for getting things like resting heart rate, HRV data, sleep data, recovery data. These are things worth tracking and monitoring over time, especially if you have a wearable. There's no real effort on your part other than to look up the app and just do a daily check-in with yourself. With some of the devices, you can even program some of those additional things that we talked about. So hopefully this will help you identify some gaps in your strong metabolism game. So I'd really love to hear what you guys think of this. So leave a comment below. Do you feel like you have a strong metabolism? What are the things you're struggling with? What are the things that you want help with or that you have questions about that can help you elevate your metabolism? All right, so as always, I appreciate you guys being here, and we'll see you next time.